Come on, movies, movies. Okay, it's recording.
What the fuck?
Hello? Okay. Alright, listen. Guys, as we already know, Resident Evil 2 is the best Resident Evil that has ever came out because of its storyline, its important emphasis on every single scene in the game. Every loading change is a part of the storyline. It's supposed to evoke fear. You're supposed to have no control over the game. Okay? That game is scary, it's original, and it's good all the way through. The best Resident Evil that's ever came out, one of the best horror figure games ever. Kevin thinks that Resident Evil Code Veronica is the best. Impossible. Can you please let the camera know why Resident Evil Code Veronica is the best?
Well, I was joking when I said Veronica. Veronica's not the best. But let's talk about why Resident Evil 2 is not the best. For starters, dialogue sounds like it was made in 1938. Characters' voice are extremely dragged out. Characters look like polygons. The best Resident Evil is somewhere between remake of 1 and 0. The dialogue is extremely good. Slam is well thought out. 0, the gameplay is extremely good. I think it's the hardest of all the Resident Evils. By far, it's the hardest of all the Resident Evils. And as far as the storyline of Resident Evil, Part 2 has a little to do with the rest of the storyline. At least Code Veronica ties together. You know, it reintroduces Wesker into the Resident Evil series, which is the coolest character in Resident Evil. And it brings together all of the rest of the Resident Evils. 0 includes the origin of Resident Evil.
Whoa. Which one's your favorite game, though? Which one's
0.
your favorite game?
0.
Okay, so can you explain why you like 0? Why is 0 good? Why is 0 better than Resident Evil 2, even though Resident Evil is a far superior game? Go ahead.
Resident Evil 0, better control, better gameplay, better storyline, and much more difficult. Now, if you want to play a game that's very easy, you can play Part 2. You won't enjoy it as much because it's too easy. 0 is very challenging. And it speaks to the future, the present, and the past of Resident Evil.
Resident Evil 2 is easy.
Resident Evil 2 is extremely easy.
Really?
Very easy.
I want to see you do the whole storyline, A and B, and get the secret costume.
Okay, what's the problem?
The problem is it's not easy.
The problem is it's extremely easy.
Oh my goodness. No, it is not.
It's easy.
No, it's not, dude. It's not an easy game.
It's an easy game. If you don't think it's an easy game, you should play 0.
Alright, 0 is harder, but it's not as enjoyable. Resident Evil 0 focuses on loading because of its switching function. That emphasis thusly on loading. You base a game that's good on loading? I don't think so. That's not a good game.
Well, no. You're saying Resident Evil 2 is good because of the way it loads. Just because the way it loads doesn't make it it's a good game. It's not. The storyline is trash. Trash storyline. Trash. And you know what? Resident Evil 2 is very secluded. It's very, very secluded. If you did without Resident Evil 2, like if you just didn't make Resident Evil 2, the rest of the Resident Evil series would still make sense. There's no other Resident Evil you can
Nonsense. Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Okay, if you did without Veronica, you would not be able to do 4 or 5. There's no way you can do 4 or 5 without Veronica. Because you'd be missing Wesker. Wesker would just be dead.
Yeah.
There'll be no Wesker.
I think Code Veronica, which is pulling ideas out of the hat, it was like a brainstorm. It was like the dialogue and story was like a brainstorm in a Japanese conference room. It's like, hey, let's do Wesker. Oh yeah, let's make a super robot monster. And let's make that. Dude, I'm surprised Godzilla wasn't in that fucking video game. That game was terrible.
You want to know why Godzilla wasn't in there? Because he was in Part 2. Godzilla was in Part 2. Remember that fucking alligator in the sewer? That was Godzilla.
Dude, that was awesome. That's
Godzilla. You was criticizing Godzilla, not me. Godzilla was in the sewer.
Listen, all I'm saying is Resident Evil Code Veronica is not good.
Resident Evil Code Veronica. Like I said,
and let's not forget Steve, the DiCaprio fucking ripoff, which, in its original release, can be tied down to the high interest in the movie Titanic at the time, which subsequently made that character look like Leonardo DiCaprio. In fact, he looked like Leonardo so much that they made an update of that game and they changed his fucking hairstyle. And this is the fucking truth.
But
This is the fucking truth right there.
Okay, that could be the truth, but guess what? It's the same fucking crappy ass hairstyle Leon had in part 2. Same crappy ass crap hairstyle. He's a Leonardo DiCaprio wannabe.
Oh, and let's not forget, in Resident Evil Code Veronica, Steve miraculously turns into a monster and then returns to his human form. Yes, returns to his human form. Thus bringing out the stupidity that we see in Resident Evil 6. Saying that that's okay, that stupidity is okay, let's not make the game serious, let's make it a fucking joke. Like Resident Evil Code Veronica, like Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 is only slightly worse than Code Veronica because Wesker's not there.
Wesker's also not in 2. Therefore, part 2 sucks. There were 2 titles in Resident Evil that Wesker didn't bother to come in. These titles just too crap. Which was 2 and 6. I wonder why.
Let's see. 3, he wasn't in Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm. They made mention of Wesker in part 3.
Well, and if we're playing semantics, then I can say that Wesker was behind the incident behind the train in Resident Evil 0 and was working with William Birkin concerning his G-Virus. He told William Birkin's G-Virus secret to Umbrella or to another company so they can get his G-Virus. So he has affected Resident Evil 2 as well. Additionally, it's also thought that Data was working for Wesker at that time because of the release of Resident Evil 4. So if you combine the notions, he does have a part in Resident Evil 2.
With the exception of the fact that he's supposedly dead.
Supposedly.
He was supposedly dead. They introduced a guy, William, who hasn't been in any other Resident Evil 6, right? He hasn't been in any other.
Of course not.
Because he's trash.
No, because the idea has been done already.
And did he not morph like a whole bunch of times himself? Did he not? He turned to a dog, right?
Right, but
And
he was
he's
not.
also a butterfly, right? A big form butterfly looking like monster, right?
No, he was blob.
With the eye in the middle of his chest, right? Is that what he had? Yeah, okay. Now from there he turned into a blob on a train.
Yeah. He turned
Okay.
into a blob on the train.
I just want to make sure. He was a dog, a blob on a train, and a 4-eyed monster.
Yeah.
With the eye.
Do you know why? Do you know why that sequence is very powerful?
Why?
Because it notes it notes de-evolution. Even though de-evolution is not a word, it shows he's decreasing in humanity. So you see, he's a human at first, right? And then he's morphing into a monster. He's a monster now, right? And then he turns into a dog, which is more ferocious, more primitive, primal. And then he morphs into a blob. What's like a blob? An amoeba, right?
But my
It
point
makes
is
sense.
this.
It makes sense.
The human form of him was a decent size. He was pretty big. The dog was smaller than the human, which made no sense to me. It goes back to Steve. He kind of got small. He kind of shrunk.
No, he adapted. The G-Virus mutates you to become more efficient. That's why he changed, because he was in a battle.
He got
he's faster.
smaller?
He got faster and stronger.
And smaller.
Not smaller. He didn't
Smaller.
change size.
Yes, he did change size.
He repositioned his bones. That's what happened. He didn't change size. In fact, you could say he got bigger.
No. That 4 monster was pretty big, and he had 4 arms and 2 legs and 6 limbs.
His bones just mutated, man. I don't know what to say. It worked out good. It was a good game. Very, very good, and I highly recommend Resident Evil 2 if you want to play a good Resident Evil.
If you want to go to sleep, think of Resident Evil 2.
Okay, so
If you want a good bedtime story. And not only that, Resident Evil 2 doesn't like withstand time. It's like you can't play it now. It's going to be trash. You can pick up Zero right now and still enjoy yourself.
Resident Evil 0?
Yes, you can still enjoy yourself right now. You pick
I'm
up
sorry.
right now.
No, you
You
can't.
pick up right now.
No, you
Graphically and game control, you can still control yourself.
No, you
I
can't.
mean, you can still enjoy yourself.
That's subjective, but I mean, dude, I can make that shit objective like hell. Like how it's not good and fun. Firstly, that game is fucking hard.
It is hard.
That game is
Absolutely
really
hard.
It has a lot of loading time, and it's not fun. And again, another notion of anticlimacticness in the end is apparent in that movie.
Is it what?
It's anticlimactic, just
In
like
what way?
Trigun in Resident Evil 0.
And why do you
In
say
what
that?
way? Because you fight. In all honesty, you fight an end boss who you were chasing from the beginning, who magically morphed from a young man to an old man. But let's not get sidetracked with that. The fact of the matter is, he had no inking of importance in Resident Evil 1, so they just made that story.
But neither did William.
They fabricated it.
But neither did William.
And what happens is, the ending is the beginning of part 1. How lame is that?
Well, it's it's a prequel. That's normally how it goes in prequels.
And I think they should have put more emphasis on the other teammates, like more storyline, more depth into them, so you could appreciate their deaths. And the same thing could be said about Resident Evil 1. There's no character development. No character development in Resident Evil 0. No character development in Resident Evil 1. Is there character development in Resident Evil 2? Absolutely character development in Resident Evil 2. Absolutely. Resident Evil 3? Debatable. Resident Evil 4? Absolutely no character development. Resident Evil 5? Let's think. Chris, Shiva, somewhat, maybe, kind of.
Okay, I mean, if character development is a big thing, no Resident Evil have more character development than Resident Evil 6.
Nope. Nope.
No Resident Evil have more character development than Resident Evil 6.
Absolutely not.
Very true.
In what sense?
From every character in Zero, they started before they started before the outbreak. They pretty much showed their background. They showed how they got to that point, and each character went into in depth about how they got to that point and why they're in the story. I mean, I understand you didn't really play through it, so you wouldn't understand that. But every single character.
Before that, character development does not mean that the story is unfolded as to what's going on at that very moment. Character development means that the character in himself or herself changes and grows or degresses in their selves. So Claire and Leon in the beginning were very scared, don't know what to do, and then at the end of the game they get a sense of strength within themselves. That is not apparent in the other games.
That is absolutely apparent in 6.
No way.
Yes, it is.
Well,
in Resident Evil 6, Leon starts out as a fucking suffering from fucking PS.
Chris does.
The fucking other guy. Lars, whatever he was a fucking, he was a weakling, Chris sucking dick wannabe.
Yeah.
And as the story goes on, he starts to not like Chris and not respect Chris much, and becomes his own man. At the end of the story, he actually becomes a hero, and Chris becomes like the sidekick.
Okay, but what happens? What happens to that character?
He dies.
No character development.
What do you mean?
Your main character dies? Come on.
He's a hero in the end. He went from the sidekick, from a little boy, up until Chris needed him. Absolutely.
All right.
Jake went from a fucking piece of scum walking the earth until the guy who saves fucking humanity.
The guy who ruined Resident Evil 6, right, Kevin?
It's cold. Turn it off.
You guys cold? I'm not cold.
I'm hot.
Yeah. Can we keep it on a little bit, man?
Cold here.
I think.